I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
Welcome back to the Quarter Mile Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very special episode for you today. We are reviewing the newest Superman movie, the 2025 Superman that just came out for us last week. This is the first time in Quarter Mile Podcast history that we're recording a new movie, which means as we're getting into it, I just want to go ahead and say right now, a spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the new Superman movie, we're going to talk about it. This podcast will be a lot more fun for you if you've already seen the movie, and I think seeing the movie will be more fun for you if you listen to this podcast after. And if you haven't seen it, go ahead and pause now, go watch the movie, and we'll be here whenever you're ready. My normal host, our co-host, CJ, is out getting ready for a play that she's in next weekend. In replacing CJ, I have found one of my good friends who, in my opinion, is the biggest Superman fan, at least that I know, debatably in the entire world. And I'm very excited to have him. He's a comedian from Indiana. We're going to give him a chance to introduce himself. But I want to introduce you all virtually to Andy Imlay. How are you doing, Andy?
Hey, we're doing great, Drew. How are you doing?
I am doing so good. It's been a fun and busy week over here. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself as a comedian, and then tell us about your love for Superman. I guess the question, the way we phrase it in this podcast is, what's your relationship with Superman?
Well, I've been doing comedy for about a decade now. I've got cerebral palsy, so that gives me a interesting perspective that most people don't have as a person with a disability. My love for Superman came, of course, from the Christopher Reeve movies, and then when he had his accident in the late '90s, he did a lot of advocating for people with disabilities. So I kind of connected with that, and kind of been a fan ever since. Not only did I get engaged at the Superman statue in Metropolis, Illinois, but I also got married at the statue in Metropolis,
Awesome.
Illinois, and also announced the soon arrival during pandemic of my daughter, Diana. The baby announcement was made in front of the Superman statue, and I've had the opportunity to do comedy at the Superman celebration in Metropolis. So just a lot of cool, fun life moments have happened in and around Metropolis or things Superman, so to speak.
That is so cool. And I guess another question I have for you is, who would you say is your Superman?
Probably Christopher Reeve. Of course, the movie came out before I was born, but I, shown it as a kid. And then Superman 2 came out in 1980, which I'm a child of the 80s. So it's funny you mentioned that because you can actually identify when somebody was born based on who they think their favorite Superman is.
I've always enjoyed Superman from the animated series and the movies and stuff like that, but it really spoke to me when I started watching Smallville towards the end of high school and throughout
Mm-hmm.
college. And
Yeah.
so, like, Tom Welling is my Superman. Oddly enough, he'll tell you he's only played Clark Kent because he was all about the journey to Superman. But that was the one that really connected me to Superman. Is that accurate because I was born in '87, and I feel like that might be a little
Yeah, I
earlier.
mean that sounds about right. I mean, I don't know that you would have been old enough to really enjoy the Lois and Clark series with Dean Cain back back
Right.
in the back in the late '90s. I
My
mean,
mom was a big fan of that series, and so I remember
mhm.
watching it. Kind of, I've probably seen most of the episodes, but what you're right, it wasn't like my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. Like,
Right.
it's still fine. So another question before we get into the movies: you've had a lot of experiences with Comic Cons and meeting actors of Superman and in Smallville, and I'd love to
Mhm.
hear kind of you share a little bit about your experience with some of the Superman celebrities you've met, what that's been like. Some of your, maybe if you have a
Well,
favorite one or.
I've met Dean Cain twice. He's always been nice to me each time that I've met him. I actually met him the day after I got married because our engagement photo was inspired by the whole Dean Cain Terry Hatcher shirt pull kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
So yeah, so he was able to give us a photo of him and Terry doing the same pose we did for our engagement photo. And so signed both of those, said he really enjoyed that we connected to the fandom in that way. A friend of mine actually sent us a message while my daughter was in the hospital because she was born super early. She was born at 1 pound 15 ounces during pandemic. And my friend actually had Dean Cain send us a message while my daughter was in the hospital, which is something that I'll probably always cherish.
Right, that's really special. I'm assuming it was like a congratulations on, your
Yeah, and then
childbirth and
kind of making the connection of how we named her Diana after Wonder Woman and all that kind of thing. So that was kind of cool. I've met Michael Rosenbaum several times. His family is from the same area in Indiana that I live in. I'm not saying that I run into him at Walmart or anything when he comes into town to visit his mom, but he'll do charity events for like hockey games. And then like he's been in Metropolis, Illinois several times, and he's always been nice to deal with. Oh, I did meet Margot Kidder, which was super cool. She was the Lois Lane in the Christopher Reeve
that's right.
in the Christopher Reeve movies. So I was able to briefly talk to her about Christopher Reeve and my love for comedy, and that I feel like I spread joy and hope, kind of like Superman does, in a roundabout way of spreading positivity, and just getting feedback from her, being knowing that she interacted with him so much, saying that he would really appreciate that I do that kind of thing. That meant a lot to me. You will be a little jealous, Drew. I have met Tom Welling.
But
He was super cool. It was
I
Michael Rosenbaum and him that did a Smallville Nights thing over in Metropolis one year, and
yeah,
they were all behind plexiglass because COVID was still kind of a thing that people were afraid of, and they were about to do an international tour, but I came up and Tom was like no, and came absolutely around the plexiglass, knelt right down beside me, like hugged me, like it was pretty cool.
that is awesome. Let's get into this movie overview. We're gonna share about the cast, and then me and Andy are gonna take a moment to kind of talk about how we feel each actor did with their perspective character. When you're listening to this, if you have opinions on literally anything we talk about, or want to share any of your Superman related opinions, feel free to comment on wherever you're listening to this at, whether it's Spotify or YouTube or whatever. You can follow us on social media at the Quarter Mile Podcast. Every Tuesday, we drop one of the movies we're about to review, and we give you space to give us your opinions, your hot takes, or whether you liked it or not. And then later, we always end our podcast, and we'll do the same in this episode. We share people's opinions that comment about it. So anyway, so this movie came out last week. It's literally the first current movie we're doing at the Quarter Mile Podcast. So Superman came out in 2025, is directed by James Gunn. The actors, the cast, we have David Corenswet as Superman, Nicholas Holt as Lex Luthor, Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen, Rachel Brosnan-Hanman. I don't know how to say her last name, but she played Lois Lane. Eddie Gath Icky played Mr. Terrific. Nathan Fillion, Green Lantern. Isabella Mercedes, Hawkgirl, and this was the one that was just kind of funny and random. Bradley Cooper was Jor-El. Did you catch that, Andy? Did you see that
Hmm.
in?
Yeah, I did. I did catch that, and again, it's a James Gunn thing. They worked
Mhm.
together on Guardians of the Galaxy, so it makes sense as to hey, James Gunn's gonna, But what a small kind of minuscule role. And my wife actually mentioned it to me. She goes, "Well, look at that," and I was just like, okay, you
Right.
know. It
I
was.
didn't notice it until I read it in the credits later. And I love that. I love that when directors or like when you go into movies and you see similar
Hmm.
casts, it just reminds you that these are people too, and they got their friends and their own community of actors and stuff like that. And I think it would be really fun if I directed a movie, or if I was in several movies, if I could get work or jobs or even small cameo roles for my friends. I think that would be a cool little thing to do. So I love it when I see actors or directors do that. So let's break down this cast a little bit, Andy. What do we
Yeah.
think of Hot Girl?
She had a handful of scenes. The scenes that she did have, of course, they were well played. I'm interested to see what they do with her character in future movies, how they're going to explore the origin story. There's so much that they can take in the direction of that character, as well as if they decide to bring in Hawkman as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I agree with you. What we saw of her, I enjoyed. I wouldn't mind seeing more. And I think if I was a movie director right now in the DCU, I wouldn't be making movies about the main big actor or superheroes that we've been making movies of. I would throw in a few ones that people know less about. And I think Hawk Girl would be a good one. The only thing I thought was a little weird when she busted in and was doing her war cry, which I just thought it was a little distracting to me. I was like, I don't, why are we doing this? And I know Hawk Girl's like, she's a warrior and like, so that's the kind of thing. But like,
Mhm.
was that on brand for her character? Or was that something they added
Yeah,
specifically just for this version?
yeah.
Or
No, that's totally on brand for the character. If you go back and watch some of the later series of Smallville, where
Mhm.
they introduce Hawk Girl in Smallville, very very similar stuff we've seen before. So pretty on brand.
Now, Nathan Fillion's Green Lantern, I really liked him. I love that actor. I loved him in Firefly, especially. But every time I've seen him in
Hmm.
anything, I just get behind him. And I like what I liked about this Green Lantern was he wasn't one of the usual Jordan or John Stewart Green Lanterns that we've seen a lot of. He was a well, for me, a more obscure one, Guy Garner. A lot of he got a there was a lot of flack about him when the previews first came out for this. They were like, what are they doing with this Green Lantern? But it was absolutely just a different character that a lot of people don't know about. And he had a little bit more of an attitude, which I'm left to understood is true for Garner, the character. Nathan Fillion said that he dropped the F-bomb more in this role than he did in any other role that he had to, and he was a little bit more profane and crass than usual roles that he had. But I think that's part of the character.
Yeah, that's just on brand for the character. James Gunn's pulling all this stuff straight from the comics. So if you've never read the comics, of course it's going to be a surprise to you. But if you've read the comics, you know this is totally on brand for Guy Gardner. At one point in the comics, Superman actually knocks Guy Gardner unconscious, and then the next scene shows Batman saying, "Finally, somebody shut that asshole up," because Guy Gardner's one in the comics that always just really has a smart mouth on him. It always has.
I like that, and it was a good contrast for Superman's character.
Yeah,
You have Superman who's just this, I mean, Boy Scout, nice, genuine, good, and then Guy Gardner's the smartass. Like he's like he's the
yeah.
rough around the edges, but still's got a good heart underneath. The last of the
Hmm.
Justice Gang, Mister Terrific. I thought the character's portrayal by Eddie was great. I don't know a ton
Hmm.
about Mister Terrific to know if how on brand he was, but in this movie, I thought Mr. Terrific and Crypto, they could not have saved the world without those two
Right.
characters. Those they
Yeah.
were Mr. Terrific. You always got, I mean, Superman's the bronze, but you always got to have the brains. And
Right.
Mr. Terrific here was huge. And then there's that really cool fight scene where he did, as he was protecting Lois, basically take on an entire army, which is cool because it shows you like, no, this guy with the technology he has can do a lot of damage. He's not just smart.
I've heard because of the success of the Superman movie that we will see a standalone Mr. Terrific movie, which is super cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
think he kind of deserves his own movie at this point. People want to know more about the character, so
Between him and this movie, and then what we saw a little bit in Smallville, because Mr. Terrific, or not Smallville, Arrow had Mr. Terrific in it. A lot of people
yeah,
didn't love his version of that character. Maybe I'm one of those people too, if I'm being honest. That character wasn't great in Arrow for me. But between those two in the movies and TVs, it makes me want to see more of Mr. Terrific. So again, that's another smaller scale DCU character that we could see more of in the movies. I just feel like it's always Batman,
sure,
Wonder Woman, and Superman. Those are the ones we get. We get reboots of
yeah,
them,
right,
and give us. There's a lot of other characters, and especially right now with all the crap that DCU has had to go under, I think instead of
yeah.
reinventing someone, creating some new movies would be great. I loved this movie's version of Lois Lane. I thought Rachel Brohan, I don't know.
Brosnahan,
Brosnahan, yes.
Brosnahan.
Despite my inability of saying her last name, I thought she was the
Yeah,
most on brand of the characters.
hmm,
She might
yes.
be my favorite Lois Lane. What'd you think?
I don't know, man. Every Lois that comes on the screen brings something a little different. Terry Hatcher brought something a little different to the role.
Mm.
Rachel definitely brings something to the role that's fresh. That's something we necessarily haven't seen before. I'm not sure if she's going to become a diabetic, but it's a possibility. As much sugar she puts in her coffee, I don't know if you caught that
Absolutely.
scene. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
great.
I
Yeah.
was just like, geez, yeah, totally on brand with that. Some of the subtle things that we saw in her apartment when there was that scene between her and Clark slash Superman, and the whole interview scene there in the beginning of the movie, that was really cool.
Yeah, so let's talk about that scene for a bit because I have mixed feelings about that scene. At the beginning, when I first saw it, I didn't love that scene. Now, what I loved was I thought it was very on brand Lois, like the way that she couldn't help
Hmm.
herself but asking the tough questions. I mean, she had a good story, she had an opportunity, she was going. You could really see it. What I didn't like was I didn't like watching Clark struggle there, like how he was getting angry, how he was it was a weird argument, and I just didn't feel like I knew these two characters well enough. It felt uncomfortable.
Again, with Superman, this is on brand. This Lois and Superman interview thing. The first movie in '78, I spent the night with Superman. It was the whole big thing. Of course, they've got to do this to establish the relationship between Clark and Lois. And in this movie, we're seeing them kind of already 3 or 4 months into the relationship at this point.
I did like that. Usually in the movies, we see them before they become a romantic couple, where she doesn't know the secret, or like later or in some anime series, like they're already established. It's been a while. This was a unique take of they're just starting to get together. We get to see them say "I love you" for the first time, so they're pretty. And maybe that was part of
Mm-hmm.
the importance of that scene is that argument was what led her to like at the beginning be like, I think I'm going to break up with him. But then because of the conflict in the movie and the stuff, she realized at the end, like, oh no, I love him. I did like that in this movie. We saw her reporter side really well, but we also saw like she when he was in trouble, she went and found the Justice Gang. She went with Mr. Terrific. Like we saw her like I don't want to call it stubbornness, but just like the courage, but
Right.
also the running face forced into dangerous situations with the superheroes, not really thinking like, oh, I could die. And I think
Yeah.
that's on brand for Lois. Now, Skylar Gisondo played Jimmy Olsen, and I'll be honest, I thought he was good in this movie, and I thought definitely his character progressed the plot with his relationship with, I guess it was maybe that was their version of Tess or
That was their version of Eve Tessmacher.
Steve Tessmacher, yes. And so he
Yeah.
was significant to this movie. I personally didn't like his take on Jimmy Olsen. When I think of Jimmy, I think of like the Smallville one and some of the ones we've seen in the cartoons, just, Superman's best
Yeah.
pal, this cheesy, happy go lucky guy, optimistic. And this one, even though it was good for the movie, he kind of seemed a little douchey. Like he kind of seemed like a frat bro version of Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, and
Um,
I feel like this is for the younger audience, maybe that
yeah.
we need some younger, for the younger girls that may be watching the movie, the younger teen girls, they need somebody to kind of fangirl over other than Superman, and so they bring in this Jimmy Olsen, and so I thought it was kind of weird to make Jimmy sort of a chick magnet,
Yeah.
that was kind of odd, but I mean it worked for his character.
And that's the thing is even though it wasn't naturally what I think of Jimmy Olsen, as I was watching the movie, I was like, it works in this movie. It's good for him. I learned later that the actor at first started like kind of researching Jimmy Olsen, but then there's like so much material, so he just kind of stopped. And James Gunn was cool with it. He's like, look, you're the Jimmy Olsen of this movie, so do it the way that you feel like you should. And I think all the actors
Mhm.
did that very well, and you could see that. So like he was fine. He did good for the movie. Nicholas Holt, I think, was an amazing Lex Luthor. I mean, I think he captured it so well. We've talked about how Michael Rosenbaum's my favorite Lex Luthor, but if we're
Mhm.
excluding TV shows, this might be my new favorite Lex Luthor. I thought he was a really good bad guy.
He definitely made you hate him. My wife actually left the theater. She was like, "Man, he was just like just disgusting, just downright. You know, I hate the way you breathe. I hate the way your hair looks, and you're stupid. Just hating every little bit of Superman, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And
on
that's
brand
Lex.
for who Lex is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who maybe don't know this character as well will say that like towards the end he just seemed too manic for Lex Luthor. But if you like watch
No.
anything animated, if you've read any of the comics, Lex Luthor is always cool, calm, and collected when he's in control, and then when things go south,
Hmm.
he always loses his shit. Like that's where because
Yeah.
that's when you see the
Yeah.
real evil behind the billionaire
Right.
mastermind kind of thing. And so I thought
Hmm.
I thought that was maybe something in Lex we hadn't seen in movies yet, but he did a real good job of capitalizing that. And
And did you know Nicholas Hoult actually auditioned for the role of Superman? And James Gunn thought he did so well. He was like, "No, I think you would make a better Lex Luthor." And so that's how that casting ended up happening. So
what a good decision. I don't know if I would. He's an actor. I'm sure he could have been Superman, but like I loved seeing him as Lex Luthor. So I'm glad that they went that route.
right,
The last one, of course, we got to talk about Superman, David Cornsweet. I thought he did very good. I thought this is an interesting version of Superman because he's not an expert Superman yet. He hasn't got it all figured out, but he's not brand new. This wasn't really an origin story for Superman. He's 3 years into the game. He's a little bit more established. He brought what I would consider old school Superman, where it is really more hope.
right.
It's really more Boy Scout, a little bit more hokey. I mean, he's a Kansas farm boy. So he is a little bit more optimistic. I mean, I loved Man of Steel and Henry Cavill's version of Superman, but at that time we needed a more gritty, authentic, flawed and airs those flaws type Superman. Nowadays, it was kind of nice to go back to the basic hope, genuinely good, maybe a little idealistic Superman. And especially when you add characters in like Mr. Terrific and Guy Garner, Green Lantern, like they balanced out his idealism, optimism. But it was nice to see it's nice to see like they're just always good, always gonna try to make the right decision, Superman.
Well, I'm glad we didn't go back to the origin story because how many times have we seen the origin story?
Mhm.
James Gunn was like, "Okay, you guys already know this character's been around since 1938. You know who Superman is. You know where he briefly says in the interview scene that I'm from Krypton. You already know all that. Let's just get down to it." And so, getting down to the meat and potatoes of it, and talking about the fact that this Superman is definitely a more vulnerable Superman than we've seen in movies past.
Right.
And I like that. I like the more human side of Superman just because it's more relatable that way. Like the scenes that you saw in the beginning where right out of the gate he's getting his ass kicked. How's Superman going to come back from this? Well, then here comes Crypto, and this is the first live action appearance that we've seen of Crypto, even though Crypto's been around in the comics for years and years and years. And
Yeah.
so that constant him getting his ass kicked, kind of healing up and getting back up on his feet and trying again, I think that's just kind of what people need, especially because everything people went through with COVID and everything people went through with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. It's time for people to kind of get back up on your feet and try again. And I feel like that
Absolutely.
was one of the big themes of the movie that just kind of made you feel damn good when you got out of the movie theater. It was just like good triumphing over evil.
I want to share some movie trivia. David Cornsweet is 6'4", making him the tallest actor to play Superman. Kind of. He's tied with Christopher Reeve. So he's
Mm-hmm.
currently the or one of the tallest actors to play Superman. Will Reeve, who is Christopher Reeve's youngest child, had a cameo in this movie. He played a TV news reporter, and in real life, he's actually a television correspondent for ABC News. I like this fact. Both David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult have admitted that they watched Smallville growing up, and that influenced the way they portrayed Lex and Clark. And I think actually on one of Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcasts, he interviews Nicholas Hoult and they
Yeah.
talk about their versions of Lex. So if you like podcasts, which clearly you do because you're listening to this one, that might be something to go check out.
Or go jump on YouTube and look up the interview between Will Reeve and David Cornsweet that they did for ABC News.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, that's like a half hour long, and that's just chock full of cool stuff because another fun thing is David Cornsweet and Christopher Reeve both studied at Juilliard.
Very
So
cool. I'm gonna go check that interview out because I had not seen it. So that's a good idea. And then here's my favorite random kind of dumb fact. Patrick Schwarzenegger auditioned to play Superman, and coincidentally, he didn't get it, obviously, but coincidentally, his father, Arnold Schwarzenegger, applied to be Superman for the 1978 showing. And that's interesting to me about thinking of a reality where Arnold Schwarzenegger is Superman. Can you picture that, Andy?
yeah, that's man, I don't know. I've heard Clint Eastwood was up for the role at one point. I heard Robert Redford was up for the role at one point.
So we have another AI plot summary for you all. This one, like I was saying earlier, I was really impressed with Lex Luthor's character in this movie. So I thought it'd be fun to give a plot summary to Superman 2025 from the perspective of Lex Luthor. And again, we've already dropped many spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't want me to spoil the plot, this would be a great time to pause and come back after you see the movie. Here's our AI plot summary from the perspective of Lex Luthor. Here's the real story of the new Superman movie, as told by yours truly, Lex Luthor, genius, billionaire, and the only man brave enough to call out the alien in a cape. 3 years ago, an extraterrestrial named Kal-El crash landed on Earth and decided to play dress up as Superman. Raised by corn-fed Kansas folk, he masquerades as a journalist while moonlighting as a flying demigod. Cute. But I thought I saw through the facade. You don't get to be humanity's savior just because you can bench press a tank. So I did what any responsible patriot would do. I investigated. And what did I find in his Fortress of Solitude? A hidden message from his real parents, Jor-El and Lara, telling him to conquer Earth and repopulate Krypton with a harem. That's right, the Golden Boy was programmed to be a tyrant, and I simply revealed the truth. So, I created Ultraman, a clone of Superman disguised as the Hammer of Boravia. He beat Superman in public, making the world question their hero. I manipulated a war between Boravia and Jarhanpur, all while backing Boravia in exchange for half of their territory, of course, because real estate is everything. I stole the Kryptonian message and broadcasted it globally. Superman's reputation? Vaporized. I imprisoned him in a pocket dimension powered by kryptonite and even held his dog Crypto hostage. Yes, even the mutt wasn't safe. Of course, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl, even Metamorpho, tried to play heroes. They helped Superman escape, and the alien fled to his mommy and daddy's farm to cry it out. Pathetic. But I wasn't done. I created a black hole over Metropolis. If I couldn't win the war of perception, I'd win the war of annihilation. Superman fought Ultraman near the black hole. He won, barely, by throwing him into a bus, being sucked into space. Then he and Mr. Terrific shut down my reactor. Crypto broke my arm, Lois Lane exposed my Baravian deal, and the government, in its infinite short-sightedness, arrested me. But mark my words, you can't cage a man, not his mind. Belle Reeve won't hold me forever. Before we get into what we think about this movie, I have some what we like to call fast fan feedback. So these were reviews given to me from friends and people on social media. Everyone who posted on my status this weekend, they all gave us good reviews. And I know there's plenty of bad reviews out there, but I only brought one of them from IMDb that I'll share as well. So here's some fast fan feedback. This one came from Will Clark on Facebook. He said, "I think this Superman appeals because he's wrestling with his identity. Born Kal-El, sent to dominate with the power to do so, but raised as Clark Kent." And the quote he uses is, "The choices that make you. The goodness he has comes from the raising and not his alien heritage." There's also some good small things. Ma Kent yelling into the cell phone like every older parent does. Lois and him absolutely in love, but having real fights. And of course, Crypto steals the show. Before I get into the other review, I want to get into that. I absolutely agree with that statement. Crypto was the real hero of this movie. In every situation Superman got in trouble in, Crypto bailed him out from the beginning of the movie to he was the one who kind of helped get Ultraman into the black hole. And at the end, he was the one who bit Lex Luthor and got rid of the kryptonite. So
if you watch a lot of the mannerisms of the dog, they are mannerisms of anybody's dog at home. You know, hey Crypto, I need some help. Well, first
yeah.
let me jump on you, even though you've got some ribs that are a little messed up. Let me, you know, and if you watch when he takes him into the fortress for the first time, as the door opens, as any dog would do when a door opens, the Crypto's wagging his tail, excited that he gets to go home, and just little subtle things that they put in there, like when he first wakes up on the farm after through the kryptonite radiation, after he heals from that. What do we see? Crypto on top of him, waiting for him to wake up like a typical dog would do when you're waking up in the morning in bed. Your dog's right there wagging his tail, waiting for you to wake up, kind of thing. So I thought
Yeah.
that was kind of neat too, how they tied in those really real elements of a dog, even though
Yeah.
the dog technically was CGI.
Absolutely. That was the fun part, was it wasn't a real dog. It was all CGI, which is why they were able to make it do so much. This was part of the innocence and the just the funness of this movie. Was like, I love the idea about thinking that on Krypton there are dogs just like there are on Earth. Like he is an alien dog. Like that's a fun thing.
Yeah,
And
well, if you look at the DC mythos, I think there's monkeys. I think there's a Supergirl has a flying horse.
And why not? It's meant to be fun. I thought it was also
Yeah,
funny, kind of in a
yeah.
similar with animals themes. Like when he's seeing all the bad things that they've been doing to like mess with Superman's reputation, you see a bunch of monkeys typing on keyboards, as the trolls, the
Hmm.
YouTube trolls and whatever. And like
Yeah.
what are we supposed to think, that Lex has had people taking time to train monkeys to be good enough to like like following that
Well,
logic is
yeah.
ridiculous.
It,
Or maybe
it's
they
it
work for Gorilla Grodd, I don't know.
well, it's basically the good symbolism that you see of people basically just mindlessly behind a keyboard or mindlessly behind a computer screen, screaming hateful stuff that they would never say to your face.
Yeah,
Hash,
absolutely.
hashtag super shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought
Oh
that was
yeah.
funny how he said, you know how much that bothers me. I don't read that stuff.
Right.
Superman doesn't have time for selfies.
It was very real. And that is a very, it's interesting that they added that to this movie, because no Superman movie ever before has had to consider, when you're writing about a celebrity having to deal with like an online presence or whatever. But that was a thing that they had to incorporate with this Superman, because that's very real in 2025.
They definitely modernized the movie by doing that, which I thought was really cool. It really brought it to today's times.
I feel like any new version of a story needs to do that in some sort of way, and I thought they did that very well. Here's another comment from Whitney Howland, also on Facebook, and he said, "It was nice to have a lighthearted story, just not so filled with angst." And that goes back to kind of what we were
Yeah,
saying. This is a more upbeat,
yeah,
cheerful, optimistic Superman. And then Spencer Gino said, "I think he did a great job as Superman and as Clark. I loved this Jimmy. He was a great mix of innocent and yet cunning and quick-witted. I liked this super evil Lex. The parts that are usually a slow burn and other Superman features were lit on fire a lot faster than usual, and I enjoyed that a lot." And I think that goes back to what you were kind of saying, was like they didn't spend a lot of time on his backstory.
yeah.
This movie is clearly made for people who already have some kind of interest in Superman. I think for some people that can be a good thing, but I also think it could cause some problems for like newer audiences. But we'll hit on that here in a second. And the last comment is from Scott Lloyd, and he said he enjoyed it, and he's like, "It's a wonderful and classic James Gunn movie," and I feel that to be true. This has
Yes,
James Gunn's footprints all over it. So
yeah, for sure.
of course, I had to bring a bad review. It's entitled Super Shit. It says, "By far the worst Superman I've ever seen. The story is confusing, and we're moving away from the history and symbolism of Superman. A far cry from Reeve or Cavill's Superman. Too bad. The only positive thing is the dog. It's not the actor's fault, but the story isn't any good. When we watched The Man of Steel, we believed in Superman, in the hope represented by the S on his chest. Here, we hope that someone will come and rescue Superman. This film mishandles the entire history of Super and turns him into a moron. I won't be seeing the sequel if is one, and I'll forget this film ever existed in the Superman universe." What do you think about that guy's response? Abe?
Well, here's the thing with any movie, don't go in with preconceived notions, okay? Don't go in with preconceived notions at all. Any movie that I go in to see, I go in with a blank slate. I go in trying to I'll watch a trailer. I'll try not to, especially a movie like this that it's a character that I love so much. I try not to read a whole lot online before I go see it because I want it to be as authentic to me as anything. I want to be as surprised as my daughter was next to me watching Superman for the first time because for her, she's almost 5. This is David Cornsweet is going to be her Superman. That's who she's going to look up to, and she doesn't have any of these preconceived notions like we adults do now.
Mhm.
All she knows is that Superman's good and Superman helps people. And that is absolutely what this movie showed, and showed that he's not completely invulnerable. He struggles with things just like everybody else does, but he gets up every morning and puts one foot in front of the other and still does good in the world.
Right, absolutely. I have a hard time with people that go into movies with, I mean, with this idea that every single version of this character has to be the exact same. Now, I get it
No.
that there's some similarities that you kind of are hoping for, but I feel like anytime you watch a new version of a superhero movie or a comic book turned into a movie, like you have to expect that there's going to be creative liberties.
Yeah.
It's like every time you listen to a cover song, right? Like a good cover song takes parts of the song, but it adds its own element of the band, that is doing it, adds whatever the band's thing is, it adds that to the song, and that's what makes
Mhm.
them fun. And I just anytime I have to watch out. For me, it's because I love superheroes so much. When I watch a superhero movie, I go in expecting there's gonna be something different. And I think anyone who reads a book and then sees the movie based on the book, it's in their best interest to realize, like, oh, this is going to be pretty different from the book. Because otherwise, you're just going to be let down. Movies are meant to be fun and entertaining and creative. And so, like, whenever we go into new versions of old movies or new versions of, something else, it's just like, why focus so much on it, whether or not this is the exact same as the comic book or previous versions of the movie? Because, like, it's just like giving yourself permission to be let down. I went into this movie knowing it was going to be a different take of Superman. And I don't. It'll be interesting when I am a little more further removed from it. But like this may not be my favorite version of Superman, but I don't think that means it because he did a bad job as Superman. And that's okay.
I definitely like this version of Superman better than Henry Cavill.
Yeah. Is it because
Yeah.
it's more like hopeful and optimistic versus more like anti-hero and like flawed?
Yeah, and I feel like it's more relatable because it shows more of the human side of who Superman is and not that he's completely indestructible. So,
Right. That version really did play into the Superman, like the Henry Cavill one. Like it really, I know I not too long ago reviewed the whole Superman trilogy, if that's what you want to call it. Man of
mhm.
Steel, Batman vs Superman, and the Justice League movie on the Movie Wars podcast, and it was interesting to me that they really focused more on the Superman part of Superman than the Clark part.
Yeah.
Which was fair. It was a take. It was part of the story that they were telling, which is fine.
Well,
Um,
and my thing is the Clark part of it is more the foundation of who he is than who the Superman part of it is who he is. I mean,
yeah, and which is what that ending speech he gave when he talked about to Lex Luthor. He was like, his humanity is what makes him a hero. Like
mhm.
he is just
Yeah.
as much a human as, like, he was raised on Earth. He was raised by parents. He was taught right and wrong. Like he is a human. Like he views himself as I'm just as much belong to be on this planet as you do. The thing though is that I think when Man of Steel came out, I think we as a culture we were looking for with superhero movies just a little bit less what might have seemed hokey or bubbly or optimistic or idealistic. Like there was
Right.
something about the anti-hero trend of showing authentically flawed people in dark, grittier settings, existing, and overcoming and being quote unquote real. And like that was appealing. I think when Man of Steel and The Dark Knight and even TV shows like The Boys, and stuff like that, when that was coming out, that was kind of what we as a culture needed because we were craving authenticity in a world that seemed really fake. Right now we live in a very tough, chaotic, not great, at times toxic world with political things going on, with the way our country is, with even just natural disasters, even like
Mhm.
what's going on right now, like in Texas, and there's a lot of tragedy. We've survived a pandemic as a culture. This is something you talked
Yeah.
about earlier. Like
Yeah.
we're ready for, I think we need more optimistic storytelling. Like I think we need more hope and
Yeah.
idealistic, like the older, what I would consider the older version of Superman, the Boy Scout, like he's
Right.
always going to make the right decision because it's the right thing. Like that's the kind of Superman we need.
Right.
And I love seeing that. That was refreshing in watching this movie. Um, you know, when I first fell in love with superheroes as a kid, there's always the idealistic. The scenario was always like they had their love interest, their main person, Lois Lane or whoever, on one side. The villain had her dangling over something, and then had a school bus full of children dangling over. And it's like, okay, how are you going to save both of them? And you always knew when you watched it, the superhero was going to save both of them because he's the good guy and he's going to win. And that gives you like hope of the idealisticness of superheroes. And I
Mhm.
think for a while in our culture, we were wanting to grow and learn and relate to them struggling and dealing with the pain and moving past it. But right now, it's like, no, we got plenty of pain. We need some idealistic, optimism in our life too.
My daughter enjoyed the movie. It was her first kind of superhero movie. I had taken her to some kid movies before that, but just kind of getting getting to see her reaction to Superman on the screen for the first time, to see her eyes light up the way they did when I saw it for the first time as a kid. Really cool. And then, of course, the scene where he sends his clone to the black hole. I'll never forget what my daughter said loud enough for me to hear. She said, "Bye, I'll see you later, you big meanie." And
I
that
love
was,
that.
yeah, that was just kind of cute. But I figure that sets up a whole Bizarro Superman thing that we may see,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. But I had another friend of mine that said every time Superman would come up on the screen and fly, there was a kid in the theater that would jump up on the seat and stick his arm in the air. So I mean, yeah, this is gonna bring a lot of people that weren't into the fandom into the fandom, and the people that are already here, it's basically like giving us a jolt of adrenaline in our veins
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
already solidifying what we already know.
Didn't it feel like a little bit off that the actual message was them saying we're sending you to take over this planet? I kept waiting for part of the plot to be, it turns out that Lex Luthor had manufactured that part. It was like made up or whatever, because in every version of Superman I've seen, his parents have had nothing but love for him, and they were like good-hearted people, and they were like, we're sending you away
Well,
to this planet to save you. But
so so again, if you read the comics, this is something straight out of the comics. This was a storyline straight out of the comics that they pulled at one point. So yeah, I was hoping that it was going to come back and say that, oh, Lex had doctored the footage somehow and there was no way that it was real and all that kind of stuff. But again, a lot of this stuff that James Gunn he pulled from several different comics throughout the Action Comics universe, because you got to think, Drew, there's 80, 75 or 80 plus years of comic book stuff you can pull from. And so,
mhm.
like, what do I pull from for
Yeah,
for my first movie right out of the gate? And I feel like he did a really good job of pulling out of certain prominent comic book storylines and meshing them together in a way that didn't really feel rushed or
yeah.
hurried at all, and everything kind of flowed, had a good flow to it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, where I figured it was probably in a version of the comic that I wasn't familiar with. And that's got
yeah,
to be an interesting position to be in, where you're making these movies and you have so much source material, but then you have to choose which source material you're going to use to tell a cohesive story. And it did. It worked. I just at first I was a little taken aback by that. I was like, Bradley Cooper would never.
Yeah.
Before we kind of wrap up shop here, the one big thing we want to talk about that's currently hitting the news and everything is everyone's talking about how woke this movie is. Everyone's criticizing it for being a slam politically to the America and what's going on and our president. And I have a problem with that. I do. I for two reasons. One, I struggle when people use the term woke and talk about why woke bothers them, because when someone describes the qualities of being woke, it seems like they're talking to me, in my opinion, about basic human decency, where they're like, oh, we shouldn't be giving these rights to these people. We shouldn't be allowing these people to have, things that they need to survive. That they're so woke for trying to value those other people. So I already know I'm on the side that doesn't get the people that are making these problems up. But a lot of people that I've been reading online have been talking about how they don't like this Superman because they don't like that he's seems to have like a pro-immigrant agenda and that he's like bashing America. Some people have said like Lex Luthor looks, they're making him like a model of Donald Trump, and it's really just kind of a jab against America and the presidency. Dean Cain came out and said that in an interview, he said that he wished they didn't make it Superman an immigrant. They think that's gonna like hurt the reception of Superman. And my biggest problem with all this is I don't think those were the intentions of this movie. I think they are telling Superman plot points well, even. And it's just because we live in such a crappy time for our country, we're able to relate the bad things about Lex Luthor to Trump, to our government, to what's going on. They didn't make Lex Luthor out to be a Donald Trump remake. They were telling Lex Luthor stories. And here in 2025, we are able to relate what's going on to our country. Look, if your issue is that this looks too much like real life, it's because real life needs to get better. When Superman was stuck in a prison and they're like, oh, they're making a jab about how immigrants are being taken away. Let's stop taking immigrants away. Let's stop putting immigrants places where they shouldn't be. And then stop saying that the movie's making fun of reality. Let's make reality better. If seeing Lex Luthor freak out and yell uncontrollably at the end of the movie, which we've already talked is on brand about for Lex Luthor when he goes crazy, if that's reminding you of the president, it's not because they're doing that. They're making some kind of cute jab with movies. It's just real life right now is representing the art that we've watched. And it wasn't the art that changed. And so that's just my personal opinion about it. Is this isn't an overly woke movie. This isn't a movie that's a jab intentionally to America, but it is pointing out some things that we got to work on. And if people don't like this movie because it reminds them too much about the president or too much about culture or too much about things people are complaining about, like basic human decency to humans, like it's not the movie's fault. We just need to do better. And that's my rant about the rants I've been reading this week. And Andy, I want to give you space if you have any thoughts to share about that as well, or
Man, just go enjoy a movie for what it is and quit trying to think there's some sort of hidden agenda for everything out there. Comic book movies are supposed to be fun, lighthearted. They're supposed to make you feel good. They're supposed to make you think about things that you wouldn't normally think about. They're supposed to be able to take you away from reality for 2 or 2.5 hours or however long the movie is, supposed to be an escape from reality. And if you're trying to somehow mesh current reality with fantasy, sounds like that's a you problem because that's not what the movie's about at all.
I like that phrase. Sounds like it's a you problem. I think sometimes, a lot of times, when we put our own thoughts and our own interpretations, our own biases, and maybe even prejudices and issues, our own baggage on other people's movies that they made. And like, well, this is what they're trying to say. And it's like, I don't think so, man. I think they're just trying to have a fun movie. So now it's time to do a Too Fast, Too Furious movie rating. Basically, we each are going to rate the movie. Too Fast is you loved it. It's awesome. Great movie. Your life is better because of it. Fast is good. You enjoyed it. Furious can either be you didn't like it or, I don't really care. It's, no significance to your life whatsoever. And then Too Furious is you really didn't like it. Your life is less than because of it. So what are your thoughts? What rating are you going going to be giving it?
Well, I love the movie, so I'm giving it the Too Fast. Overall, loved it. That's why I went back and saw it a second time just to see if there was anything that I might have missed.
Okay. I love that. That's great. I'm gonna give it a fast. I enjoyed it. This movie is my genre though. You could wrap poop in a cape and tell me it's a superhero movie and I would enjoy it. I love superhero movies, so this genre definitely is like what spoke to me kind of thing. So I did enjoy it. I think if I wasn't a superhero fan, I don't know if this movie would do much for me. And if I hadn't seen like much Superman beforehand, I think I would have been like, it's a cute movie, it's a nice movie, but it's not for me. But like I said, this is like I love seeing everything comic book related. So this is my movie. But I'll be transparent and say like in comparison to other superhero movies, like not my favorite. Like it was just a good movie. So hopefully we can still be friends, even though I didn't give it a raving super too fast review.
I completely respect your opinion, and I mean, it is what it is. And of course, we can still be friends, and I hope people can learn from this.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, I want to thank you for being on this podcast. I want you to thank you from joining us from Indiana, taking time out of your Sunday to come hang and talk movies. And I want to give you a space where if you have anything you'd like to plug or any social media or whatever that people can find you on, and it will be in our episode notes, which wherever you're watching this, you can just go click the description and you'll see it. But Andy, what do we got that we can promote for you?
Man, more than anything, I want to promote my friends over in Metropolis. If you're a big Superman fan or fan of comic books or just DC Comics in general, visit Metropolis, Illinois, and they got a 15-foot high Superman statue you can take photos with. There's plenty of photo ops around town. There's a museum you can go into to see memorabilia from all genres of the Superman series, all the way from Kirk Allen in the serials to George Reeves in the 50s to Christopher Reeve in the 70s. They've got Man of Steel merchandise. They've just got new Superman costumes in from the new movie. It's just a short drive from Nashville or a short drive from where I'm at in southern Indiana. It's a great place to take your kids. It's just kind of one of those day trip things for anybody in the Midwest to kind of do. And I'm all over the place in the Midwest doing comedy, whether it be at a bar, at a church, at a convention, you name it. I'm there, constantly working, constantly sharing my love of Superman, along with disability advocacy and humor on top of that, and what it's like to be a dad that loves Superman and have a daughter that can run faster than me. So
we're happy you're here. We're happy we'll have to have you back. Maybe we'll get another Superman movie and we get you back on it. And then
David's already signed on for a second movie, so we're getting a second movie.
I love that. And I want to see a second movie. This movie made me want to see more, and so good.
Right.
In the second movie, who would you like to see the villain be? Who would you like to see Superman take on?
I think we're going to see Bizarro in the second movie. I think his clone's going to come back from whatever dimension he was sent to through that black hole, and then I think we're going to see some more development out of that. I think we'll see some more development out of Guy Gardner and his character possibly, and then we'll of course see more interactions between Lois and Clark.
Yeah, I'd love to see all of that. I think Bizarro would be an interesting storyline. I had not thought of that until you mentioned it, but that would definitely be really cool. I'd like to see. I know that it's always a risk, kind of repeating sequel storylines, but like this would be a good time for a General Zod storyline. This would be a good time for already it dropped in the movie that he was supposed to be a tyrant and take over Earth, but he chose not to. So it would be a good time for other Kryptonians to show up and try to finish the job.
We did get that little preview of Supergirl at the end of the movie, which was kind of neat. So
yeah. Well, next week we're going to be talking about the movie Snakes on a Plane. We actually pre-recorded that episode, and we were like, we're going to need to throw it in eventually. We didn't really know where, but we got with me and CJ's busy schedules, we had to cut down on some recording. So it was a good thing we had an extra recording. So if you like Samuel L. Jackson and Snakes on a Plane, that's next week for us. And Andy, thank you so much for coming out and talking Superman movies. It was a pleasure. And ladies and gentlemen, just a friendly reminder, have a good time, enjoy movies, do something that brings a little hope to everyone around you. there's a lot of good things out here. We're having fun. Life is great. And whatever you do this week, live your life a quarter of a mile at a time and have a great rest of the week.